Hello everyone and welcome to the second video on Raylib. Today we are going to look at how to manage inputs and try to move some objects. With that said, let's get started. More specifically, today we'll look at how to read keyboard inputs, how to move an object, and how to make movement independent of frame rate. That said, remember that you can find the template for the C++ project in the description, so you don't go crazy trying to set it up with CMake. As always, I assume that you already know C++, limiting myself to providing explanations when I show something complex or little known. A brief summary of what we saw in the last video. We saw how to create a window with init window. We saw how the window loop works to keep the window alive. And we also tried to draw different shapes within the draw area. Now let's see how to manage keyboard input. We will put the input control inside the loop, since we have to check each time if a certain key has been pressed. Just for your information, we'll typically put the variables we need outside the loop. To check the input, we use isKeyDown, which is a function for check if a certain button of the keyboard is being pressed. We will replace the key we want to check inside the round brackets. This must place obviously inside the if statement, since we want to verify that the key has been pressed. To check whether a button has been pressed, there is not only isKeyDown, but also other functions such as isKeyPressed and isKeyReleased. Let's take a moment to understand the difference. We have seen that isKeyDown returns true when the button remains pressed. isKeyPressed, on the other hand, is only true when the button has been pressed once and is useful to creating toggles or single actions. Finally, isKeyReleased returns true when the button has been released. Now, just for information, these are all the buttons you can control with Raylib. Now, before we move on, let's try to put what we have just seen into practice mixing in something we learned in last video. First of all, I defined the two variables x and y with coordinates. Then I defined a constant variable to move our square 5 pixels every frame. Inside the loop I place 4 if statements to control the movements. Now I might be light strange, but in computer science coordinates on the screen are handled differently than one might think. For example, to go right we just add the speed to x, and to go left we subtract the speed. But to go down we have to add y to the speed, and to go up we have to subtract the speed. This is how it typically works in computer science. Finally, let's draw our square on the screen, which must be constantly updated in position every time we press the key button. Okay, now to make the movement smoother and independent of FPS, we are going to use the GetFrameTime function, which returns the number of seconds since the last frame. We save the value in a variable, and by modifying the previous code we just need to multiply by dt to make the movement smoother and independent. We have seen how to take keyboard's key as input, but that's not all, because we can also take mouse buttons as input. The functions themselves are practically the same, and there are 3 of them. Is mouse button pressed? Is mouse button released? Is mouse button down? And as we can guess, they will do exactly the same things we saw with the keyboard's key. So I have prepared a short example where I show you that every time I click with the left mouse button, I take the x and y coordinates of the mouse with the 2 functions provided and change the position of my rectangle. Okay, now I'm going to suggest an exercise you can try on your own. We have seen how to move a rectangle on a screen, so now I suggest you to try to make it so that when you hold down the shift key, the rectangle moves faster, and when you hold down the control key, it moves slower. At the end of the video I show you the solution. Now let's see how to add delays to the keys. To do this, we'll create a timer that allows us to insert this delay. To do this, we will create a float variable called Cooldowns. It is important that it is a float because we also need to decrement it in decimals. After which we will rely on our GetFrameTime to do calculation. Let's do a check that says that if Cooldowns is greater than 0, then we must subtract it from dt. Now let's choose a key, in this case C, and put an AND next to it, where we will insert our Cooldowns, and say that if the Cooldowns is less than or equal to 0, then it can do what we have written inside the if. If it's not, it will do nothing. The important thing is that we insert the Cooldowns equal to 3 inside the if, which means that there will be a cooldown of 3 seconds. Now, just to see better, I have added a draw text function to the draw area that allows me to write on the screen. Inside there is another function called text format that takes a string with a placeholder and returns a string that is ready to be passed to the draw text. It is a bit like a printf if you like. The other parameters of draw text are the x and y position, the text size and the color. If we now try to execute the code, we can see that when we press the C key, it shows us the cooldown, and in the meantime, even if we press C, nothing happens. Well, we have come to the end of this Raylib tutorial on how to manage inputs. Now, for those who tried to exercise earlier, here is the solution. It was anything complicated. That's all. Thank you for watching. I recommend subscribing and turning on notification if you don't want to miss the next episodes, and see you in the next video. Bye bye!